The most expensive horse ever sold went for $70 million. It was a thoroughbred. It never raced a single day in its life. The buyer didn't care. What they bought wasn't a horse. It was a biological asset, a living, breathing machine, built over 300 years of selective breeding, worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes. And here's the part nobody tells you. The horse had no idea. He ate hay that morning. He stood in a field. He was completely indifferent to the most expensive animal transaction in history happening around him. Today, we're going from the working farm horse that costs less than a used Toyota, all the way to the animals that sell for more than private jets, that are insured like fine art, and that have their own legal teams. 7 levels, 1 species, an entire world hiding in plain sight. Let's get into it. Level 1. The worker draft horses and grade horses. $500 to $5,000. This is where horses begin for most of the world. The American quarter horse, the Belgian draft, the Percheron, the Clydesdale. These are the animals that built civilizations, that plowed fields before machines existed, that carried soldiers, that moved freight across continents before railways existed to replace them. A grade horse, meaning a horse of mixed or unverified breeding, can be purchased for as little as $500. A well-trained Belgian draft in good health sells for $2,000 to $5,000. To put that in context, the average used car in America costs more. But don't let the price fool you into underestimating what you're looking at. A Belgian draft can pull 8,000 pounds. That is not a typo. A single horse pulling the weight of a fully loaded pickup truck twice over. The Clydesdale, the breed most people recognize from the Budweiser advertisements, can reach 2,200 pounds of body weight and stand 18 hands tall. That is 6 feet at the shoulder, before you even reach the neck. These horses are not glamorous. They are functional in a way that most things in the modern world have completely forgotten how to be. They work hard. They work without complaint. And when they are done, they work again. The market at this level is entirely agricultural. Amish communities, small farms, trail riding operations, rescue organizations. The transaction is practical and uncomplicated. You need an animal that can do a job. You buy one. It does the job. There is no status here. Nobody is photographing a Belgian draft at a gala. Nobody is insuring a grade horse for 7 figures. Nobody is flying a bloodstock agent in from Ireland to assess the conformation of a $2,000 farm animal. What this level gives you is the foundation of everything that follows. Every horse, at every level above this one, is descended from animals that looked a lot like these. The distance between a $500 grade horse in a Pennsylvania field and a $70 million thoroughbred in a Kentucky Stallion barn is enormous. But they share the same bones, the same instincts, the same need for hay, water, and space to move. The horse didn't change. The meaning humans attached to it did. Remember that. It becomes important later. Level 2. The sport horse, warm bloods and eventers. $10,000 to $50,000. This is where the horse stops being a tool and becomes a dream. Let me tell you about a woman named Sarah. She is 34 years old.
She works in finance in Amsterdam. She earns good money, 6 figures. She is disciplined, rational, analytically sharp.
She runs models for a living. She understands risk and return better than most people on Earth. And for the last 8 years, she has spent her savings, her vacation time, and every single weekend on one horse, a Hanoverian warm blood named Castor. She bought him 5 years ago for $38,000. Since then, she has spent an additional $150,000 on his board, training, veterinary care, farrier visits, competition entries, and coaching fees. She flies to competitions across Europe. She has a sports coach who charges $200 an hour. She has a vet on speed dial. She has a physiotherapist. For the horse, not for herself. She has never won a major championship. She has never earned a single euro from this horse. And if you asked her tonight whether she regrets it, she would look at you like you'd asked a genuinely strange question. This is level 2. This is where the horse stops being a transaction and becomes an identity. The Dutch Warmblood, the Hanoverian, the Oldenburg, the Trakehner. These breeds were developed specifically for equestrian sport, a deliberate cross between the heavy draft breeds of Northern Europe and the lighter, faster horses of the East. The result is an animal built for dressage, show jumping, and eventing at the amateur and semi-professional level. A well-bred Hanoverian with solid competition history sells for $25,000 to $50,000. But the horse itself is only the beginning. At this level, the horse requires $500 to $3,000 per month in ongoing costs. Board, farrier every 6 weeks, without exception. Veterinary care, competition entry fees, travel costs, the coach who watches you ride and tells you what you are doing wrong. Do the full calculation. $18,000 to $36,000 per year, every year indefinitely. Sarah has done the calculation. She knows the number. She does not talk about it at dinner parties because she knows it is indefensible by any rational financial measure. But she also knows something that cannot be captured in a spreadsheet. She knows what it feels like when a horse and a human become completely synchronized. When the animal stops resisting and starts dancing. In those moments, a $40,000 horse becomes something the word priceless was actually invented to describe. Here is where it gets genuinely interesting, and where the money starts to behave like money again. The KWPN, the Royal Dutch Warmblood Stud Book, is the most powerful warmblood breeding registry in the world. Their evaluation system for breeding stallions is extraordinary in its rigor. Multi-day assessments, movement scores, jumping scope tests, temperament evaluations, veterinary inspections. A stallion that fails cannot enter the registry. His bloodline stops there. A stallion that passes becomes a commodity of an entirely different kind. His frozen genetic material sells for $500 to $2,000 per straw. His offspring command premium prices at sport horse auctions across Europe. His genetic legacy outlives him by decades. Here is why that matters to the buyer at level 2. A mare with verified KWPN bloodlines might sell for $15,000. The exact same horse without proper registration papers might sell for $5,000. The difference? $10,000 of pure paperwork. At level 2, you are not simply buying a horse. You are buying into a system. You are purchasing a promise that your investment has verifiable resale value. Sarah knows that Castor's bloodlines are good. She also knows that none of that is why she bought him. She bought him because when she rode him for the first time, he felt like flying. That is level 2, completely irrational, completely human. Level 3, the Arabian, the breed that launched an industry, $50,000 to $500,000. If you want to understand the modern horse industry, you have to understand the Arabian. Every thoroughbred racing horse alive on Earth today traces its male line back to one of 3 stallions. 3 animals out of the entire history of the horse. The Bayerli Turk, the Darley Arabian, the Godolphin Arabian, All three were Arabian or Oriental stallions imported into England in the late 1600s and early 1700s. The entire global thoroughbred industry, $300 billion in annual economic activity by some estimates, descends from those three horses. Let that sit for a moment. Three animals, $300 billion. The Arabian itself is one of the oldest documented breeds in recorded history. Egyptian carvings depict horses with the Arabian's characteristic dished face, arched neck, and high-tail carriage as far back as 1500 BC. Bedouin tribes bred them across thousands of years for survival in the desert, selecting generation after generation for stamina, heat tolerance, and an almost supernatural connection to human beings. Arabians were bred so closely alongside their owners that they were brought inside tents at night. That proximity, sustained across dozens of generations, shaped the Arabian's personality at a genetic level. Arabians are famously people-oriented in a way that most breeds are simply not. They seek human contact. They read human emotion. They respond to the emotional state of the person handling them with a sensitivity that experienced horsemen describe as almost uncomfortable in its accuracy. They are also famously spirited, which is a polite industry term for an animal that will identify every boundary you establish, test it methodically, and then look for new ones to test. At the top end of the purebred Arabian market, prices become extraordinary. Egyptian Arabian bloodlines, horses traced directly to the desert-bred stock preserved by the Egyptian royal stables, command $200,000 to $500,000, and in exceptional cases, significantly more. The Al-Khalidiyah Arabian Horse Festival in Saudi Arabia sees animals sell for prices that rival luxury automobiles. The buyers are not primarily wealthy amateurs. They are representatives of national breeding programs with government backing. In the Gulf states, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, owning a Great Arabian is not a hobby. It is a matter of national and tribal identity. The Arabian horse is woven into the history, the poetry, the visual culture, and the self-understanding of these societies in a way that goes far beyond what the Western horse world can fully appreciate from the outside. This is not enthusiasts spending hobby money. This is civilizations investing in their own living heritage. If this is landing for you, hit like and subscribe right now. Every week I break down how extraordinary things, animals, assets, entire industries, actually work beneath the surface. Not the version you find in a brochure. The real version. The numbers, the history, the human stories behind the price tags. Stay with me, because what comes next is where the horse industry stops making any kind of emotional sense and starts operating like a financial market. The numbers from here become genuinely difficult to process. Level 4. The thoroughbred racehorse, where sport becomes an industry. $500,000 to $10 millions. This is the level where everything changes. The thoroughbred is not a naturally occurring breed. It was not discovered. It was engineered deliberately, systematically, over 3 full centuries to do exactly one thing: run faster than every other horse on earth. The result of that engineering is an animal of almost absurd physical extremes. A thoroughbred's heart can weigh 22 pounds. That is twice the size of an average horse's heart. Their lung capacity at full gallop processes 1,800 liters of air per minute. Their stride length at top speed can reach 25 feet. They cover that 25 feet in under half a second. The fastest recorded thoroughbred speed is 43.97 miles per hour, clocked by Winning Brew in 2008. That is faster than Usain Bolt's top speed by a factor of nearly 3. But here is the thing that most people outside the industry do not understand. The thoroughbred market is not primarily about racing. It is about breeding. Racing is the audition. The race is the performance that determines value. But the value itself is realized not on the track. It is realized in the breeding shed, where a champion's genetic material becomes a revenue-generating asset that outlasts the horse's racing career by decades. A horse that wins the Kentucky Derby does not retire to a quiet field. It retires to a breeding operation where its services are sold to mare owners around the world. American Pharoah, the first Triple Crown winner in 37 years, stood at stud at a fee of $200,000 per single breeding after his 2015 season. At the Keeneland Select Yearling Sale in Lexington, Kentucky, the most prestigious thoroughbred auction in the world, the average sale price regularly exceeds $500,000. In 2006, a yearling colt by the Stallion Giants Causeway sold for $16 million. He was 12 months old. He had never been on a racetrack. The buyer purchased a probability. Sometimes the bet pays. Sometimes it becomes a footnote. That uncertainty is not a flaw in the thoroughbred market. That uncertainty is the thoroughbred market. Level 5. The show jumper, the sport that made horses financially irrational. $1 million to $15 million. Here is something the equestrian world does not advertise widely. The prize money available in elite show jumping is, relative to the actual cost of competing, essentially symbolic. The Longines Global Champions Tour offers prize money of approximately $300,000 per event. The cost of campaigning a competitive horse on that circuit for a single season can exceed $2 million. The math does not work. It has never worked. It will never work. And every single owner competing at this level knows it. So why do they do it? The paddock at a CSI 5-star show jumping event is not really a sporting venue. It is a social infrastructure. The people in that paddock, the owners, not the riders, are operating in an environment where Gulf royalty, European old money, American new money, and international business interests occupy the same physical space. That environment cannot be purchased directly. It can only be accessed through the horse. The horse is the entry ticket to a room that does not officially exist. The horses at this level are warm blood crosses selected with precision for 3 qualities: scope, carefulness, and rideability. Finding all 3 in one animal at the level required to compete at CSI 5-star produces horses that sell for $1 million to $15 million. Totilas was a Dutch warm-blood stallion born in 2000. His movement was, by any objective measure, once in a century. His extended trot was so extraordinary that Olympic judges used language they had never used before. His passage looked like slow motion in real time. His piaffe was controlled explosion. He broke scoring records. He generated standing ovations from audiences who had never watched dressage before and would never watch it again. In 2010, Paul Schockemöller purchased Totilas for a reported $15 million. The transaction sent shockwaves through the equestrian world, and then nothing went according to plan. Totilas moved to Germany. New stable, new rider, new training, new expectations, because with a $15 million price tag came expectations that were not merely high, they were absolute. Every competition became a referendum on whether the purchase was justified. Every score below a record was reported as underperformance. Horses do not understand price tags.
But they understand pressure. They understand tension. and Totilas began to change. The lightness that had defined his movement began to recede. His scores dropped from the low 90s into the upper 80s.
He was still magnificent, but he was no longer miraculous in the way he had been before the purchase. He competed intermittently through the early 2010s. He changed riders twice. He was withdrawn from championships he was expected to dominate. He retired in 2017. He died in 2018 at 18 years old in his stable in Germany. The videos of his peak performances, his early competitions, before the sale, before the price, have accumulated tens of millions of views on YouTube. People discover them constantly. They watch and feel something difficult to name. The movement looks almost digitally altered. It wasn't. That was just Totilas, in the brief window before the world decided what he was worth and handed him the bill. Here is what his story teaches you about level 5. Money doesn't just buy the horse. It buys the obligation for that horse to transcend its own nature, indefinitely, on demand. Totilas was the greatest dressage horse of his generation. The price made him something else, and the something else was heavier than the something great. Level 6, the racing stallion at stud, the living asset. $30 million to $100 million plus. Stop. Before we go any further, you need to understand something fundamental about what just changed between level 5 and level 6. This is not simply the next step up on the same ladder. This is a completely different ladder.
At every level we have covered so far, the draft horse, the sport horse, the Arabian, the thoroughbred on the track, the show jumper in Monaco, the horse was still being valued for what it does.
For its movement, its speed, its scope, its performance. The horse was the product. At level 6, that relationship ends. At level 6, the horse stops being an athlete. The horse stops being a performer. The horse stops being valued for anything it does in an arena or on a racetrack. At level 6, the horse becomes a factory. A top thoroughbred stallion in peak commercial demand can cover 150 to 200 mares per breeding season. At a stud fee of $250,000 per covering, that represents a single season gross revenue of $37.5 million to $50 million from one animal in one calendar year, while the horse stands in a paddock in Ireland or Kentucky, eating grass, entirely indifferent to the financial architecture surrounding him. Coolmore Stud in County Tipperary, Ireland, is the apex of this industry. Wine 200 acres, white rail fencing, stone buildings, a staff of hundreds, and at the center of its operation, for 2 decades, a single stallion named Galileo. Galileo stood at stud at Coolmore from 2001 until his death in 2021. During those 20 years, his offspring won 10 Epsom Derbies, 3 Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, and over 100 Group 1 races globally. His stud fee is estimated to have reached $700,000 per single covering during his peak years. $700,000 for one breeding from one horse. Galileo's greatest contribution was a horse named Frankel. Frankel raced 14 times. He won 14 times. He retired in 2012, having never been beaten on a racetrack. He now stands at stud at a fee of $175,000 per covering. His effective asset value has been estimated by bloodstock analysts at $100 million to $300 million. One horse, $100 to $300 million. At level 6, we have left the world of horses entirely. We are in the world of financial instruments with heartbeats. Level 7, the untouchable, when the horse becomes a symbol. 70 million and beyond. In 1983, a colt named Sheriff Dancer sold at Keeneland for $8.25 million, a world record that shocked the industry. That record was broken. Broken again. Then broken again. Then came the Green Monkey. In 2006, a 2-year-old thoroughbred colt walked onto a private Florida training track and posted a timed workout that stopped conversations. His quarter-mile time was extraordinary. His Bloodlines, by Forestry, out of a Stormcat mare, placed him within the upper reaches of the commercial thoroughbred gene pool. The buyers ran the numbers. The expected value calculation at the extreme end of the bloodstock market works like this. You take the probability of a horse becoming a dominant breeding stallion, multiply it by the lifetime breeding revenue such a stallion would generate, and compare that against the purchase price. That calculation produced a transaction value the industry has reported at $70 million. He was 2 years old. He had never raced. He raced 3 times. He did not win once. He retired to stud at dramatically reduced valuations and faded into the category of famous cautionary tales that the bloodstock industry tells quietly, usually late in the evening, usually with a drink in hand. But here is what people who tell the Green Monkey story as a cautionary tale sometimes miss. The purchase was not irrational. The people who made this transaction were not naive. They were some of the most sophisticated buyers in a market that demands sophistication as a basic requirement for participation. They ran the numbers. The numbers, given the information available at the time, supported an extraordinary valuation. The probability distribution was unfavorable in its eventual outcome. But probability distributions contain, by definition, the possibility of every outcome, including the worst one. The bet did not pay. That is not the same as saying it was a bad bet. Because level 7 is not fundamentally about horses at all. Level 7 is about what humans are willing to believe. There is a horse alive right now, insured, stabled, staffed, and monitored around the clock, whose valuation exceeds the annual GDP of some small sovereign nations. His morning temperature is logged before his owners are awake. His diet was designed by equine nutritionists. His security is managed by people whose only job is to ensure nothing happens to an animal whose value demands professional protection. He has a full-time veterinarian on retainer, a legal team managing syndication agreements across multiple countries, an insurance broker overseeing a 9-figure policy. The horse, for his part, eats hay. He stands in a field. He turns his head when something moves at the perimeter of his paddock. He is entirely, absolutely, magnificently indifferent to everything that has been built around him. He does not know that his genetic material has been frozen in liquid nitrogen tanks to breeding facilities on 3 continents. He does not know that a room full of suited investors in a city he has never been to reviews his projected earnings quarterly. He is a horse. He experiences the day the way horses experience days, through grass, through light, through the company of other horses, through the rhythms of feeding and rest, and the simple physical fact of being alive. Here is what connects the $500 grade horse on a Pennsylvania farm and the $70 million thoroughbred on a Kentucky stallion roster. Neither of them knows the price. For 10,000 years, this animal carried our weight. It plowed our fields, fought our wars, delivered our messages, and powered our economies. We shaped them. Generation after generation, we bred them into specialized forms designed to serve specific human purposes. And then, somewhere along the way, The relationship inverted. At the top of this market, the humans serve the horse, the nutritionists, the veterinarians, the security teams, the legal advisors, the insurance brokers. Hundreds of people, organized around the care and protection of one animal. The $500 horse asks nothing of the world. He is purchased because he is useful. He is cared for because caring for him makes him more useful. The relationship is honest and uncomplicated and has not fundamentally changed in 10,000 years. The $70 million horse asks nothing of the world either. He is maintained because of what he represents. The relationship is extraordinarily complicated, and the horse is the only participant in it who doesn't know that. The horse didn't change between level 1 and level 7. The animal is the same animal. The hay is the same hay. The field is the same field. What changed was everything we decided to build around it. It was never really about the horses. If this was useful, subscribe. Every week I break down how the most extraordinary things in the world actually work. Not the surface version, not the brochure, the real version with the real numbers and the real stories. See you in the next one.